So Singapore also further opening up and sort of really lifting those restrictions that we've seen throughout the pandemic. What do we know?
Yeah, I mean, Singapore is really moving ahead most distinctly against Hong Kong in terms of those financial centres here in Asia, dismantling one of its last most significant virus curbs, the wearing of masks indoors. That means you no longer have to wear a mask in offices, in public places like restaurants, movie theatres, that sort of thing. So a really big step toward normality as cases come down from in the teens of thousands to around 3,000 a day in Singapore, which has really sort of led the way somewhat in that normalisation step.
And we've had a pretty big jump in numbers for China, big for China, of course. Is a lot of this coming through from Sanya?
Yes, that's right. Hainan Island continues to be a problem. This is the southern province of China, very favoured by vacation goers, and they seem to be among some of the infected down there. They're seeing consistently around 1,000 new cases a day there. It's been called a sort of mini Shanghai, with most of the cities there locked down. They are trying to move some of the tourists out of the island, trying to get them home. They are subject to a raft of restrictions, though, typical with China's COVID-0 situation. Lots of tests and mandatory isolation for a couple of days once they do get back to their home places within China.
And Emma, in Japan, we've really seen cases hover at pretty close to record highs for a while now, right? And now the Prime Minister has actually tested positive.
Yeah, Japan's sort of somewhat in the middle between sort of Singapore and then obviously China on the extreme end. They are keeping some restrictions in place, particularly around travel. Tourists cannot freely travel in and out of Japan, unlike Singapore. But yeah, as you say, cases still peaking there. They're on a bit of a different wave cycle. They're sort of seeing the top of that now, of course, exemplified by the infection of the Prime Minister, who apparently has a pretty mild case and will return to some work duties, isolated, of course, today.
And Emma, you mentioned how Singapore was going in the opposite direction to Hong Kong. What's happening in the city?
Yeah, I mean, you are seeing the wave really start to pick up there, and it's affecting the hospital system. It is starting to become quite inundated, and they are reopening those isolation centres, which they use to house people that can't necessarily quarantine when they have COVID at home. The Asia World Expo, one of their biggest isolation sites, has been reopened. They've added 200 beds there, so a real sign of how Hong Kong continues to sort of follow some of that COVID-0 path set by China.